good morning, India. Good afternoon somewhere. Good evening in California, Silicon Valley, guys, and sleepy time in East Coast. Welcome you all. This is a MedBricks webcast. We have a very distinguished guest today. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce him. Is actually uh, is Dr. Suresh Mukherji of course, he's a professor of radiology and radiation oncology, University of Illinois, Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, and Rutgers University. Is a faculty in the head neck surgery in Michigan. Um, so he's a very well distinguished professor and doctor and national director for the head and neck radiology, proscan imaging, and that Dr. Mukherji, let him bring on the table. Dr. Mukherji, welcome to the MedBix webcast.
Hello, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly well. So,
Good.
so let me, Dr. Mukherji, I wanted to ask you, just let me just bring you your presentation, maybe. Um, just Let me ask you basic questions. So you've been in this, So can you give me your journey up to this point? How you ended up being a radiologist from a personal point of view? Where did you come from, and how did you end up here?
Well, thanks for having me on the show. It's great to be here. Well, my journey was my parents came over from the old country, if you will, from India back when I was 5 years old, and we settled in Nashville, and then we moved to Louisville, and then after that, I went to undergraduate in the United States and went to Duke University. Graduated summa cum laude, went to Georgetown Medical School, and then trained at the Harvard system. And then I wanted to become a neuroradiologist. And so I did my residency in the Harvard system and then became a neuroradiology fellow at the University of Florida. And then I've been in academics since then. So I was at the University of North Carolina and then University of Michigan. And now I'm a hybrid. I work both clinically and academically. I've had a little bit of a success in my career. Had about 400 publications. I stopped counting the number of talks I've given just because with COVID, a lot of the things are remote, but it's probably honestly about 1,000, if you will. But like I said, I don't even count anymore. Editor of 3 journals right now, and just enjoy everything I do every day. So thanks for having me.
So you have such impeccable credentials. It is truly an honor for us. So let me ask you a question: Is that what is the head neck, the radiology imaging? What is particularly related to the head and neck radiology? What that means?
Right. So, I don't know the complete makeup of your audience, but the way to think about it is, so I'm a radiologist. I did a residency in radiology. And radiology, as you know, is imaging of the body. So it's CAT scans, MRI scans, X-rays, PET scans, etc. So I did a residency in radiology, and then I decided to focus in neuroradiology and specifically focus in a very focused area, which is basically from the skull base down to the clavicles. So it's radiology is a specialty, and neuroradiology is a subspecialty, and head and neck radiology is a subspecialty.
But the
So
head neck radiology is connected with the brain, of course. But you do the neuro side of it also. The neurology, the connected with the brain. That's the reason you do the neuroradiology
That's
side.
exactly right. Yeah. So we do the brain, we do the spine, we do everything associated with the neuraxis. So the brain, the spine, and the head neck, they're sort of all within one. And I've been doing that for many, many years. This is using something called PET. So PET is positron emission tomography. And what it does, it's really quite fascinating when you look at it. What we were able to do is in CT scans, we can look at the brain using radiation. In MRI, can look at the brain using magnets. And in PET, we can look at the brain looking at sugar. So what we do is that we take sugar molecules, which is glucose, and we place a small little radioactive ligand which emits a little bit of radiation, very, very minimal, but we inject into the body, and it's metabolized by the body through glycolysis. So you may remember glycolysis because I know you're a scientist.
Yes.
And through some of the magic of our neuroscientists, we can actually look at the metabolic activity of the brain in those parts of the brain that actually use glucose for its active metabolism. So based on this, it's very helpful to look at the bottom left. You can see something that says normal. That's what a normal brain looks like. It has been helpful somewhat in patients that have dementia. So there have been some studies that suggest that we can use this PET imaging to try to differentiate mild cognitive impairment from Alzheimer's disease. So you can see that illustrated below. And then on the right-hand side, you see a pink image, and you see something that's very bright and white. And that is a patient that actually has recurrent cancer involving the head and neck.
Oh, that's really.
So PET can be used in a variety of areas. It can be used for dementia. It can be used to help differentiate recurrent tumor from patients that actually have tumors recur. So it's been a very, very powerful tool.
It is a functional imaging, right? I mean, I used to sell PET CT scans. It is a functional. The you're deceiving the body that FDG is a radio tracer. Actually, the body thinks that the body thinks it is a glucose, and it's try to consume it, and then but it actually it is tagged the radio tracer along with it. Is that
That's exactly right.
okay. Very good. So PET CT scan changed the world of Alzheimer's in that sense. They were Medicare funded big program on this one. The Alzheimer's still are they actively a PET CT scan is giving the diagnosing the diagnosing the Alzheimer's. Are you still they continuing the research in this area through the PET CT scan to determine the extent of the damages and other things?
Well, it's an excellent question. The issue is, do we know what really causes Alzheimer's disease? So just today, actually, there was a new drug that was reported. The paper has not been peer reviewed, so it's a little bit, I think, unfortunate, but it sort of summarizes the world that we live in now. Is that one of the drug companies indicated that one of their drugs has somewhere between a 20 to 40% efficacy for trying to reduce the progression of Alzheimer's disease. The challenge with Alzheimer's disease is, do we really know what causes it? So when it comes specifically to PET imaging, we can identify certain proteins or certain products in the brain that can be seen with PET imaging, and I'm specifically referring to amyloid and tau. So we can actually identify amyloid and tau in the brain, but we don't really know if that is what's causing Alzheimer's, or that's a byproduct of Alzheimer's, or if it's a byproduct of aging. So the challenge that we have is, yes, we can image these byproducts, but we don't really know if it's a cause or if it's an effect of the aging process, and specifically if how much it's really related to Alzheimer's disease.
So it is still a lot of mystery behind the Alzheimer's, as you're saying. We don't know exactly what the cause of the Alzheimer's, or we don't have the exact treatment process. Also, we are not in place. That's what you're saying. Is that
Yeah,
right?
not at this, nothing really reliable. And even the information that was released literally about 5 hours ago, um, it hasn't been peer reviewed. So unfortunately, what's happening now is that many of these companies are releasing information on their papers that have substantial uh, effects on our society, but they really haven't gone through peer review yet. So unfortunately, that's one of that's a new era that we live in.
So you're a neuroradiologist. As the baby boom generation growing older, there is a huge onslaught of neurological diseases, particularly dementia and Alzheimer's and all those diseases. So, are we all the radiologists prepared for these? The entire radiology community and the country itself prepared for these huge neurological diseases coming onto this country, and how you deal with it? What is your perspective? I like to listen to that, Dr. Mukherjee.
Well, I think you know, I guess number one, if you look at the workforce issues, there's going to be a shortage of physicians. There's already a shortage of radiologists. So if any of your viewers are interested in radiology or neuroradiology, it is a wonderful field to get into. If I had to do it all over again, I would do the exact same thing. Every day I get up, I absolutely love what I do. I think it's fantastic. I have one son in medical school right now, and I would be delighted if he became a neuroradiologist. Are we ready for the onslaught? I don't quite know yet. I think the best, still the best computer in the world that's ever been made is your human brain. So, despite all the science and technology and the artificial intelligence, etc., I still it's going to be a long, long time before we can match the power of the human brain. So, are we prepared for it? We're doing the best we can. Are there enough people that are involved in our area? Probably not. Are there more advances to be made? 100%. It's a fantastic area to go into.
Dr. Mukherjee, that's you mentioned you're encouraging people to go into the radiology field, but Silicon Valley is giving us an entirely different picture. They're saying that we don't need a radiologist anymore. We can diagnose and we can treat. We can better than radiologists. In fact, they say they're claiming that they can detect lung cancers, and in the future, in the artificial intelligence, adding that to the radiology imaging intelligence, they can bypass that process. What is your take on that one, Dr. Mukherjee?
Well, I think many of your viewers, I know you have a very sophisticated viewership, will be familiar with something called the Gartner curve. Gartner is a consulting agency. And anytime a new technology comes out, there's a large peak that goes up that's called the height of inflated expectations, because you need that in order for venture capital funding to fund any type of new companies, et cetera. And then there's a large trough that comes down that gets into the trough of disillusionment. So when it comes to artificial intelligence, I think there were many people that felt that any problems that we have in society can be solved by zeros and ones. A computer can solve any problem. And unfortunately, that's not necessarily the case. Now, I think artificial intelligence will be used in radiology in order to make us more efficient. I think with artificial intelligence, and we're seeing this right now, if we're looking at an X-ray or a CT scan or an MRI scan, I think artificial intelligence has the ability to say whether it's normal or abnormal. But on the other hand, if something is abnormal, then we're still going to have to come up with a differential diagnosis and say what that disease is. And unfortunately, I don't think artificial intelligence is going to have that level of sophistication. But if we are in a busy practice and we can potentially put something through an algorithm and it can tell us with a high degree of confidence it's negative, then I think there's going to be a lot of promise with artificial intelligence. There were many statements that were made about 10 years ago, and some very sophisticated people in artificial intelligence and also leaders in the radiology field, where many of our meetings are focused on maybe our field is dying. But I can tell you from my perspective, there's a shortage of radiologists right now, and there's certainly a shortage of neuroradiologists. In fact, the salaries have never been higher, and there's never been a greater demand. So I think right now we're getting into the trough of disillusionment for artificial intelligence, but eventually we will finally settle on the ultimate value. And I'm quite sure that the ultimate value will be, it'll make us be more efficient. It'll make us be a better radiologist, I think, in the long run, but certainly 100%, it's never going to replace us.
You're a neuroradiologist, but I'm going to ask you a little bit different question. Mammogram side, you know that breast cancer is one of the challenging, hard to detect, in the mammogram screenings. Is it possible that the AI can play a role, and then that is probably one of the biggest misdiagnosis in the field of radiology? You think that in the Silicon Valley can help in this direction, Dr. Mukherjee?
Yeah, yes, 100%. In fact, Google has come out with some excellent articles about 3, 4 years ago using the ability of artificial intelligence, as I mentioned before, to say something's abnormal. So, so I think artificial intelligence can clearly be used to try to use that technology to help look at a mammogram to say whether it's normal versus abnormal. And that's a very important step. Now, once something is deemed abnormal, you still need to have the radiologist review it, because you could still have some abnormalities that are still benign lesions. Not everything that's abnormal on a mammogram is cancer. Maybe there's some benign lesions, maybe it's a technical artifact, etc. But if you can take screening studies, which in general have a low prevalence of disease, and exclude the majority of negatives, I think that's fantastic. And so, again, that's what I mean by helping us be more efficient. The other area where artificial intelligence is going to help us in breast cancer is that, for instance, in the UK, in the National Health System, all of the mammograms have to be read by 2 radiologists. So you already have a shortage of radiologists. I mean, if you're familiar with the National Health System in the UK, it's a good system, but they just don't have enough people, and it's very slow to get access. And now they have to have 2 radiologists look at every mammogram. My feeling has always been, if you can come up with an algorithm that says something's normal versus abnormal with a high degree, with a high negative predictive value, meaning that if the mammogram is negative, it really, really is negative. If you can take that mammogram and put it into the algorithm, and the algorithm says it's negative, the second radiologist still needs to look at it, but there's a high likelihood that it's going to be negative. So it makes that second radiologist more efficient. So I think there are going to be some tangible benefits to help workforce issues as well too. So not only, number one, not only is it going to make we in the United States more efficient, but in the United Kingdom and other areas, it can actually address some of the workflow issues that we have regarding shortage of physicians.
It is an excellent idea that is 2 radiologists reading it, particularly mammograms, would be beneficial to the communities and public itself. So, Doctor, when I'm going. I wanted to ask you, what are the things that advances in radiology that you're predicting in the future, in 5, 10 years now? I know that AI is one of them, but are there anything particular things that radiologists are anticipating and do in the particularly towards cancer or particularly towards aging population? Is there anything that you could add to that diagnosis and the treatment aspect of it?
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, I think artificial intelligence is certainly going to make us more efficient. I think the biggest advances in the future are going to be on interventional radiology, and also in the treatment of cancers. So for instance, when we talk about PET CT, what we're doing now is that we're merging radiology with molecular biomarkers. So there are right now, basically looking at PET CT only looks at one agent, and that's glucose. But if you look at other tumors, and if you look at the surface of those tumors, there's small little receptors, small little proteins. And there's a vast armada right now of specific nuclear medicine agents that can actually bind to these specific proteins. So you can look at the cancer cell, you can see the proteins that they're expressing, and you can actually target specific molecular markers to bind to those tumor-specific agents. And if you can do that, not only can you diagnose them, but you can actually treat them. Because instead of adding like a little something that we can actually see it on our imaging, if you can add like a little kill agent, you can actually kill those tumors. And that whole field of radiology and oncology is called theranostics. And that's already being done in Europe. It's already being done in Australia. It's now starting to make its way into the United States. So I think that's a very, very big area.
Is
And
it
also, I think
theranostics? It's called theranostics.
theranostics, right? Yeah. And the other big area too is that, back when I was in medical school, I trained in the last century. I was born in the last century. I trained in the last century. And in the last century, usually when someone had a cancer or someone had an infection in their abdomen, they would have to go to the operating room. But in the new millennium, and we're a fifth of the way in the new millennium, the operating room of this new century is really the angio suite. It's actually an interventional radiology. So I think a lot of the procedures that we would have to take patients to the operating room with are now being treated in the angiography suite by radiologists, and avoiding the operating room. So I think the new advances are going to continue to be minimally invasive treatments for various diseases that would have to go and have major surgery in the past. And that really in itself is a separate podcast. But I've been amazed how this has expanded over the last 35 years since I started my residency.
As you said that you're from India, that one of the question I have is the reagents, the agents, the agents that you're using, FDG or rubidium. Those are all. It's not easily the half life of some of these agents are very small. Contrast agents are very short life. So how do the cyclotrons? They don't have that many in other countries. I tried to sell one to Dominican Republic one time, and they said that they don't have the cyclotron. They can't have the agents that how do you solve that problem in the PET CT scan world in the other countries? Do you have any some kind of roadmap to that?
Well, it's a great question. I think number one, we have to determine efficacy of these various agents that are used. You don't want to create something. Well, number one, if you look from a pure financial standpoint, you cannot put a cyclotron. So for your viewers out there, cyclotrons are very expensive pieces of equipment. They cost anywhere from $2 million to $10 million. And you cannot have a cyclotron on every block, as in California, you have an MRI on every city block. You just can't put a cyclotron on every block. So the first thing that you have to do is that you have to make sure that if you do develop something new and novel, that it actually works. So that's the first step. Then the second step is once you develop something new and novel, you have to make it practical. So you have to, what these particles do is that they have a certain half-life. Like as a human being, we have a half-life. Our half-life is basically 75 years or 80 years. That's our lifespan. So if you take that into the smaller level, that's how these PET agents work. They're around for a while, then they kind of fizzle out. So at some point, you got to make sure that, number one, you have to make sure something's work, and then you have to be pragmatic about it. You have to make sure that maybe the half-life has been 6 or 8 hours. So to answer your question specifically, any agent that's only going to half-life of 20 minutes, it's just never going to work. But what they have to be able to do is to develop certain effective agents that can be a little bit longer, because from a practical standpoint, we're not going to be able to put $5 million pieces of equipment on every street corner. So I think it's a partnership. You have to balance efficacy versus pragmatism, and to make sure that society as a whole can afford it.
To do extension of that. So everyday life experience, you know that the entropy is very important for doctors, for anybody in the healthcare, in general overall industry. So this is like you see here, the eggs is a. You see the eggs here. They become a scrambled eggs that you cannot unscramble back. That is the problem right there. Then you have a broken glass, and then you cannot unbroken it, because that is a very normal experience for all of us. But what is that? If you get only, we know that all we get older. That's all also part of the process. We think we get older. That is, we accept that as a part of the law. But in fact, the laws of physics is a time invariant. A time invariant means it doesn't know the difference. The particles in the body doesn't know the difference between yesterday or tomorrow. Only difference is that we feel the time. Actually, that is, the time is illusion itself, because the loss itself, the yesterday, it is equally plausible going backwards towards younger, is equally possible going older. There's no difference in the laws of physics, except there is a one abnormal law, that is the law of entropy. It says that the order goes to disorder. That's a natural progression. Is the room gets messy, things fall apart, is the natural law. It's a, is this law is embedded in the nature itself. It is not something that you do. It is a natural universal law. Not only applies to just in the planet Earth, it applies to the entire universe. Order goes to disorder. That's a fact of life. The fact of not only for life, fact of the life of the universe. That is the great about that is the entropy's characteristic. So how do you this? So why it is, what is special about the order to go to disorder? What it means? It means you lost the information. If you lost the information means, for example, if you see on the left side there's a thread, you see the beginning and the end. In the right hand side is a chaotic, it's all messed up. It is no beginning, no ending. That is where you lost the information. It is not the time you lost. It is a lost. The losing the information is the key for not predicting the future. That's why you know the past, because you know exactly where the beginning and the ending was. So the lost information is a critical process for the entropy. So, for example, it's a law of entropy, as I said, that is a complexity increase rate. So more chaotic it is, more complexity it is. So the entropy is higher. The more complex it is, so our life itself is a lower entropy. The data loss, the lost information, loss of data is the causing the entropy goes higher, and then we get older because the loss of information we have. We don't have any other choice because things go bad, ultimately go bad. That is a universal law. So we don't have the information about it. So how do you, what is information means? What do you say that information means? Information in the body, there are two kinds of information. One is genetic information, that is all the DNAs you pass from parents to children and all those things. Those are the genetic information. There's a second kind of information, is the epigenomic information. That is a silent information regulators. These are the information passing like a bookmarks in the book. So they tell you where to read. For the old days, it used to be DVD, the magnet, it goes, the optical reading, it goes where to read from, the chapters. That's what it is, the bookmarkers. Epigenome is telling you genes that read the other genes, control other genes. That is epigenome, that they call subtunes, silent information regulators, they call. So they play a critical role in getting older. The reason is the cellular stresses, social determinants, feeling discriminated. See, the time is not, I have not spoken with the time. Getting old is time is not, I have not spoken with the time. It's all about information. Cellular stresses, social it can accelerate the chaos. Social determinants. For example, they made a research. If you are feeling discriminated, it can shorten the telomeres, so it shortens the life. Just feeling discriminated, not, I'm not talking about you're discriminated actually. You're feeling discriminated can shut, our neuroradiologist can tell us more about that functional aspect of it. Probably they measured through functional MRI, that one. So that's what they said. They did a research on it. Feeling discriminated can cause the shortens the life. So what is the cells do in the information side? Actually, senescent cells, they're called senescent cells. There's these the body is an amazing, and it sends information to the entire the environment. Every cell is, when they are in stress, is always, it never fails to send the information. The stress, the signals called secretomes, they keep on sending signals to the body. Hey, I'm getting messed up. But the reason is that the reading that information is getting messed up. That's what because of the stresses, because of the other factors, we are not reading proper. That's what the senescent cells become pathological cells. And then once they become pathological cells, that is become older. They arrest the division. Some of these senescent cells, they don't divide anymore. They're useful for the wound healing, and the in the other aspect, wound healing is useful, but tumor suppression. But if they are hanging around too long and then too much, that's what causes cancer. So senescent cells are, we don't know the difference between the pathological senescent cells and good senescent cells. So a lot of research going on. So this is the information that a senescent cell sending to the cells, sending to the environment, is not read proper. Information is lost. That is what it is. It is getting older, so that's the reason makes you older. What is information actually? Information, you have to treat them as a physical. It is a physical. It is exists in time, not in space, not in the, as you're thinking it is on the memory sticks, or does not information. That's still a physical thing, but that is not information. Information is an abstract, but it exists in time. That if you consider, the information is exists in time, that can create a very powerful system. So you have to understand the information how it works. So the Elwood Shannon that I was talking about in the video, he measured the entropy of a language first. He translated the Boltzmann equations into entropy of the language. So he found out the entropy of the English language is 1.0. Here is left side. I intentionally spelled it wrong. Doctor has admitted the patient. Okay, even if you are not genius, as social media claims, if you read that you are genius, it's not. It's actually, I tell you, the low entropy state of the English language. This is my language in the middle. That's my native language, Telugu. If the reason is, I tell you why English is so powerful, is why it is becoming the very acceptable language in the world. Because if in the middle of the language, if you see that um if we miss one letter in my language, you don't have any clue what it is. If I forget by mistake, if I typo one letter, that's it, gone. The meaning itself is gone. You cannot read it. See, this is the third one is Aramaic. This Jewish, the Jesus spoke this language. That language is nobody knows. Only few people in the Syria speaks. So there's absolutely none will know. So what is the reason? The entropy says if you have more questions you have, that is the higher entropy is. In the left side, in English, I can ask one question. Maybe at the worst case, I ask you what is the last word PINTAET, what that means. So you may say is a patient. Okay, that is I may ask you one question maximum in English language. Even though I'm not expert in, even the people who they think it is, some of the people think it is spelling is still right, but still you can read it. A lot of people can read that. The reason is the abundance of the entropy is kept it lower because they have the information. The English language has a full stops, periods. It has a capital letters, small letters, silent letters. All of them created the abundance of information that created. So it's easier to read. So they kept the lower entropy state. That's what he measured. The Claude Elwood Shannon measured for this first paper he published is entropy information. That is so useful in the computers now. Shannon entropy is a fundamental process for the computers now. So if you have the more questions you have about certain things, the entropy goes higher. You have to keep it extremely lower. The lower number of questions you have, that's why Twitter is famous, because Twitter became a popular. You don't see Twitter in my language because it's impossible. If you make one mistake, you're in a mess. So even though it's not a romantic language, English, or the beautiful language, an efficient language, but it has the abundance of letters that created the universal powerhouse there. So the low entropy state of the English language made it extremely popular with the Twitter and every other area, business side of it. Then the entropy of the money, they create a clear picture of the entropy of the money. Information about the entropy says that the information that we are seeing, the currency right now, is a higher entropy because it has the information uncertainties, a lot of uncertainties, and a lot of corruption. It can happen because it's not a legal tender. There is no backed by anything else. It's basically legal tenders. That is not the correct money. The entropy says the NFTs are the correct money, even though Bitcoin is messed up, because Bitcoin is messed up at the end. It is not in the mathematics itself. Nothing wrong with that. NFTs are powerful algorithms. So the entropy is lower for the NFTs. So eventually that will win the game. That's what it says. So entropy about the money, entropy of the language I spoke, entropy of the software. So there is entropy, software entropy is called. Software is a very important, is a technical debt goes higher, it goes higher, and the entropy goes higher. What it means, if you have version 1, you created a version 1, and then every time there is a new versions coming up, you're creating more problems. You're creating entropy is getting higher. So what it's saying is that more versions you have, more problems you are creating. Your entropy is chaos, is much more possibility that it's going to go chaos. Even so, keep it simple. And that is important. You actually keep it simple and everybody can use it. That is what it's saying. So entropy goes higher if you're keep on adding the whistles and buzzles for every time anybody asks for it. That can cause problems. So that is very important to keep in the software. It is clearly mentioned in the Wikipedia software entropy. Then entropy of the software, that's what I said, that only way you can reduce that. That's why you remember Windows, when they publish it, they say you can go back, you can switch back to the old version, because it's not for us. Actually, it is easier for us to switch back. It's for them to not mess it up. The chaos, it makes them easier. The reason they understood, Microsoft understood the problem of entropy, and that's why one click button, you can go back. That is the power. Every time you add the versions, you should know what takes resources, how much, what are the resources it takes to go back to the previous version. So software is a problem. Any entropy of the environment, entropy of the environment is, it is a very critical. Because people think that if you order some food and then they deliver to your home, and it is, oh, very good, now I don't have to get out of the house. But what they're saying is the entropy says something interesting. When you dig iron ore and create a nails and then ship it to one place, and or food, the farmer makes the food, and then you cut it and then bring it someplace logistically, and then make it food and then deliver to you by the Uber driver, and then you get the food. It looks simple. Oh, I can get the food at home, it's very easy. Amazon made my, or Uber Eats made my life easier. But in fact, what he's saying is you are increasing the depth of the death. You're increasing the entropy of the entire planet. It is clearly done because you're depleting the natural resources, but irreversible natural resources. Some of them are, you cannot reverse it back. So that's, the entropy is increasing. So ordering some food is an easier thing that people think it is. You're paying a huge price. That's why we are having the calamities, these environmental destructions. So my friend Laura Turner, she's a good friend of mine. She's a champion for the. I want to mention she's a president of a Captain Planet Foundation in the Atlanta. She's a daughter of the CNN Ted Turner's daughter, good friend of mine. And then she was a champion for the environment. She always told me about that. She always talks about this. We need people like the Dr. Bill Gates. He's a heart surgeon from Nashville. He's one of the conservatory for the global conservatory. He's a CEO. He's a vice chair for that. So we need people. We need to really respect the environment for this. Then the last one is the entropy of math. Is entropy always increases. A lot of people, even the physics people, have a hard time understanding entropy. I made it easier for you to understand it. This guy Bob is buying the tacos. Is a $10 25. Is $10 tacos you buy. He's paying with a credit card. He's paying at 25 cents for the interest rate. So when he want to tell his friends how the tacos look good or not bad, iPhone, he needs iPhone. iPhone is $1,000. Then he's paying $125. The debt is increasing. Remember the interest rates. When he buys a pickup truck to pick up the tacos, he's buying a $30,000 paying truck. That is $35,000. That on the right side, the entropy, the debt is increasing. Not only entropy is a value, it is increasing. You cannot reduce it. That's always, as long as you live, as long as the planet lives, as long as the universe is there, the entropy goes up. That is the key. Entropy is always is up. So Big Bang theory to the all the way universe, it is always becomes chaos, chaos, and chaos. Eventually it dies. That's called a heat death. So entropy each at the end of the day, at the end of the universe, entropy wins the game. That's very funny thing. During the final stage of the heat death, people have to sleep like 1 year, 364 days a year. They have to put them in sleep, because whenever they get up, they consume the energy. When the energy comes in, boom, bangs. So that's one of the theories is there, that you need to really conserve. That is, we need to respect. See, even the universe is not escaping the entropy law. So this is, the entropy is not some abstract subject. It is a pure mathematics. You can follow the mathematics. It is a pure. That's what the Boltzmann did on the cloud. Elwood Shannon did. The Shannon entropy. It gives you clear mathematics and how it works and how progression works. That is the power of the. So that's why we can apply in healthcare. You see, that is a power. Hindus believe this is a life is an ordered collection of molecules. So the universe started with the Big Bang with a lot of a lot of atoms, fundamental particles. They get together, they created planets, they created stars, galaxies, and the stars and the planets, and then us created life. We are the ordered collection of molecules, and then eventually it will go back again. That's a low entropy state we are in. It goes to the higher entropy state. Lower entropy state is a chance. It happened in a chance. So is the eventually the low entropy state, it goes into eventually our we when we die, all our atoms will merge into the universe itself. So the life is a blessing. Entropy gave us this life. Hindus believe at the end of the day, Lord Shiva is a destruction of the universe. He destroys the universe, and cyclical universe starts again. That's his game. So anyway, this is my presentation. Thank you for listening. So we need to respect life. Entropy is a very powerful mathematical tool, and it is you can see the change of this one. That's why I promote this my things on the website. You can buy coffee cups and everything. So the reason we are all learning. So why we are getting older? That's what the entropy information is lost. But it says that entropy gives a very strange outcome. One of the outcomes is Boltzmann brains. That means your younger yourself com- formed somewhere in the universe and in the multiple universes. All the things can happens. So your brain formed somewhere in the universe, exact replica of your brain. Younger brain of yourself is there somewhere in the universe. That statistical mechanics is a physics allows that. It's called Boltzmann brains, they call. It is very controversial, but it's a Boltzmann brain is saying that your brain is somewhere replicated in the universe itself. So that's why that we have to when we get older means that we are existing somewhere is a very Hindu philosophy. That is, there is a the entropy exists in all aspects of life. We have to really, that's the birth to death is a fact. So remission of, but sometimes you can ask why everything goes to order to disorder, but there are remission of cancer, and some people can get a plastic surgery, they can feel better. Yes, you can do that. Entropy is not stopping you to feel better temporarily. It is just, it lets you get better a little bit, but doesn't mean you can stop tomorrow death. You cannot stop tomorrow coming. You cannot stop the death. That's what the entropy law of entropy says. You can extend it, but you cannot stop it. That is what the thank you for listening. I'm going to bring Dr. Mukherji back and ask him some questions about life itself and the radiologist world itself, how they do with the AI, entropy's AI. Let me 1 second. Thank you. Welcome back, Dr. Mukherji. So this is the entropy. I don't know whether when the mammograms they use actually the universal law, the entropy, the CAD software. They use that software to detect the CAD cam through the breast cancers.
Yes, they do. I don't know if that really. First of all, congratulations! An excellent presentation. It's fascinating. I don't really know if CAD is a type of entropy, but they certainly use computer-aided diagnosis to increase the likelihood of finding abnormalities.
Yeah. So, so yeah, that's correct. CAD is a computer aided design, but they're using the mathematics for that, and that's what. Let me. I'm also going to. Yeah, that's. Let me turn off this one. So, Dr. Mukherji. So, what is that? There is a lot of things that physicians can learn, as you say, and we can learn from physicians because we are two worlds right now conflicting in the world right now. Silicon Valley is, doctors think, a lot of physicians I speak with, they think that the Silicon Valley is threatening them. It's a direct contradiction to them. What is your idea about, do they conflicting with you? Do you feel that that is a threat to them, a threat to their livelihood, or the career itself, or we can work together?
Well, I think it's I think we can work together. The I think the way that I look at this, I think it probably relates to your talk on entropy. Is that what technology and Silicon Valley and electronic health records is doing is it's providing us more data, but the issue is we have to turn data into information, information to knowledge, knowledge to decisions, and decisions have to be used to improve outcomes. And so I think right now, when it comes to a lot of the technological advancements, there's a tremendous amount of data, but only a small amount of that is actually turned into clinically relevant information that's actually going to affect how patients are treated. I think I think one of the biggest advances that we can have from Silicon Valley is the sharing of medical records. In fact, literally an hour before I talked to you, one of my colleagues' father's in the hospital, and they don't have access to medical records. And so I think one thing that can be done with Silicon Valley and some of the enhancements is to make sure that we have care coordination so we can share information to help improve the outcomes of patients. That is conceptually what is happening, and certainly in places like San Francisco or New York, it's almost mandated, but there's still other parts of the country, even here in Indiana, where one hospital system actually has 4 separate electronic health records, and so you can't transfer information even though the patient's in the hospital. So I think those are areas where Silicon Valley can certainly help us.
Yeah, it
The
is.
the downside is that when you are in a patient's office right now, it seems like to me the doctor is always staring at this computer screen, and they're not really talking to the patient. They're not looking the patient in the eye. So for someone like myself who's in medicine, we may not be aware of that, but from the person that comes in to see the doctor, whose life is outside of medicine, they want to have that concentrated time where they can look their doctor in the eye because they're their caregiver and they're very reliant on their physicians. And I think that individual person-to-person interaction has now been lost by technology. So I think technology has been a dual-edged sword.
You eloquently said that very well. You take the data points, you take the data, you consider them as information to knowledge, knowledge to communication. It's a beautifully well put together. You did a great job on that. That is, if you do that, why don't they extend that one to, is my question to, I was in the radiology business for a while. I wanted to ask you why we don't do that in the radiology reports. So why don't we do crisp and clear and communication, crisp, clear and concise communication to directly to the patients, where is you can do the radiology reports? That is a interesting question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, well, I think the issue is, I think the question is why don't patients have access to the radiology reports? Is that your question?
Correct. And much easier to understand reports.
Right. So I think the answer to your question is not necessarily from a radiologist standpoint. There's nothing that I put in my report that I wouldn't want the patient to see. Um, like as I mentioned before, I've been involved in radiology for the last 30 years, since the last century, and I've seen the evolution of electronic health records. I've seen the creation of patient portals. I'm a bit advocate to ensure that all information is transparent and can be conveyed to the patients. So the issue is not necessarily the radiologist allowing their reports to be seen by their patients. The issue really is, how does a health system um, manage this new information, this new data, which is information that's created by radiologists, and disseminate it to their patients? Because what ends up happening is, as soon as I sign off my report, it's there for anyone to see regarding the value stream of our healthcare system. The issue that comes in is that, what if the patient receives the radiology report and they have questions regarding the report, and then they call up their referring physician or their subspecialist and say, hey, the radiologist told me, yeah, I do have a cancer, I don't have a cancer, they found something, they didn't find something, I have questions on this part of the report. The referring physician hasn't even seen the report. The person that ordered the study, that's that primary patient's caregiver, has lots of patients they have to take care about. And they're put in an awkward situation when the patient receives more information than they do. And now the patient is calling back that caregiver. So there's no correct answer to it, because each system has a different way of managing turning that information into knowledge. And then knowledge needs to make decisions, and decisions need to affect outcomes. So that's where that's where the issue comes in. So for me, I don't really care. I think every patient should see my report. But from a health system standpoint and a referring physician provider, they're the ones that are concerned that they may not be able to take the best care of their patients if they don't have access to the reports first, so they can take that information, turn into a knowledge, and then provide the best care for their patients.
Thank you, sir. You walked on the fine line between the Silicon Valley conflicts and then the radiology. You enlightened all of us in that direction, how we can accept artificial intelligence, Silicon Valley, and the radiology. All we can work together. It's a truly an honor, sir, to work to talk with you. You shed us so much great light on all of it, all of those things together. Thank you so much. And you walked on the fine line between. You enlightened all of us. It's truly an honor, sir.
Thank you very much for having me, and congratulations on this wonderful initiative.
Thank you, sir. So I'm going to play this video that there's the promo video.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it.